Hello and welcome to Catholic Life. I'm your host, John Buckwheat, and today I have a very interesting show. I have a gentleman on here who's ran all the way across the whole big United States and then turned around and wrote a book about it. And another guest on who haven't been on before, Steve Rossi. Welcome to our show. Thank you very
John.
much.
Pleasure.
And now I want to shake hands with this runner who ran all the way across. Jeff Grabosky, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much, John.
And we're going to talk about your event. But let us, before we get into that, let's take 30 seconds out for a thank you message from our bishop. Stay tuned, folks, and you'll see a good show. This program was brought to you through the general support of Catholic Diocese of Arlington, established in 1974, serving over 400,000 Catholics in 21 counties in Virginia. It is a home to 67 parishes and 44 Catholic schools. His Excellency, the Most Reverend Bishop Paul S. Laverty, has served the diocese since 1999, opened 6 new parishes, 3 new schools, and 3 new missions. The diocese is the fastest growing in the country, with a 40% growth rate in the past decade. To learn more, visit their web, www.arlingtondiocese.org. If you just tuned in, folks, you're watching Catholic Life, and I'm the host, John Buckwheat. And I have 2 guests on, Steven Rossi, who's been on before, and he's brought a gentleman on with him, Jeff Grabosky, right?
That's
a runner. Well, now, I want Steve to introduce himself a little bit about his background, and then I want you to do the same, and then we'll get into your show, okay?
Sure.
Tell our viewing audience about yourself a little.
Yes, I'm Steven Rossi, and we're neighbors, and I've been running for a long time, since I was 28 years old, and I started running the Marine Corps Marathon when I was 32. And I've been doing it almost every year, and I've run it 18 times.
18 times?
Yes, and my 19th time will be coming up at the end of the month, and I'm looking forward to that, at the end of next month. So I've learned over the years that it's almost a necessity to pray while I'm running. Mm-hmm. So it's, and I never have a shortage of things to pray for. And I've actually made a list of my prayer intentions, and I say the rosary, basically 15 decades of the rosary, mm-hmm. and in the 6 miles that I run in the mornings.
But I don't think you run as far as Jeff.
No, I have
So
not
now I
run
want Jeff to tell a little bit about
yes.
How he got involved in before you tell your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jeff.
Absolutely. My name is Jeff Grabosky. I've also been running for a long time. Started when I was about 5 years old. My mom used to take us with her to the track in the summers, and I'd run around in circles, and I always remembered my mom praying. I love my faith and I love running, so the two go hand in hand, and much like Steven, I always pray when I run. I don't like listening to music. It's my time to get away and just be with God. So I've been running ever since I was little, ran throughout grade school, ran cross country in high school, ran for fun in college, did my first marathon as a senior in college. And a couple of years later, I got hooked again, and it just kept going. So I did ultra marathons, they're 100-mile races, and then finally it spurned into a across the country run. But
well, tell our viewing audience. He has a book that he's written, and I want Joe to zoom in on this. How did you get the idea of running all the way across the country?
It actually started once I ran what was my second marathon. It was in 2008, and I ran it for charity. And when I crossed the finish line, I thought it would be so cool to do something big, like run across the country, but do it for somebody else, to really use my talents that God had given me to help others. And over time, after praying about it, I came up with the idea. I remembered my mom. She had prayed, and she had passed away in 2006, unfortunately. Oh. But it was a way to honor her and the faith that she helped to instill in me. And I thought it would be wonderful to pray for others and to encourage people to pray. So I took prayer intentions from people all over the world, had thousands of prayer intentions, and as I ran, I said a decade of the rosary for each intention that people sent me.
Well, now, where did you start?
I started out in Oceanside, California. It's on the southern end of the state, and I made my way just through where I knew people. I had family in Phoenix, I had family in Oklahoma City. I ran through my alma mater at Notre Dame. I still had a few friends there. Came down through Alexandria, Virginia, where I had more family, and finished up where my college roommate had opened a store in New York on Long Island. So I was able to run ocean to ocean. It was just over 3,700 miles. 3,700
miles. How long did it take you, Jeff?
It took me 4 months to the day. So averaged a little over 31 miles a day. I did take some time off about 16 days of rest for injuries or very bad weather, for instance. But on the days I ran, it was about 35 miles a day.
Well, now, when you think about running, you've got to think about carrying some luggage. I mean, did you have a backpack or something? What did you do?
I figured I wasn't strong enough to carry a backpack, so I figured I'd push all my gear. I had about 80 pounds worth, and I pushed a baby jogger. I had my tent, had my food, had my water, any extra clothes, supplies, electronics.
In a baby stroller?
In the baby stroller. So I actually got stopped a lot by cops because people would call in saying there's some crazy guy pushing a baby on the highway. There wasn't. It was just me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it added some humor to some very long days.
But that's a good thing. If people report something unusual or suspicious,
That was a good
you can't
thing.
blame them.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
80 pounds of gear pushing across. Now, how did you end up pitching your tent? Where did you have to pitch it? I mean, you can't pitch it in the mall someplace.
No, I fortunately didn't have to camp out a whole lot. There was a section in the desert. It was about 90 miles between towns, so I just pulled off. And I stayed at a lot of motels. Some people heard about me on the news and offered me their place to stay, and I had some friends along the way. So it was amazing how God provided a spot each night.
He's written a book, folks, and it's all about the beginning. January 19th, Oceanside, California. It starts off there. And every day you wrote a diary of day 2, day 5, day 19, all the way through. Everything that's happened to you.
Yes.
You have some interesting stories to
I have
tell?
some very interesting stories. I ran into some amazing people. One struggle with being on my own for so long was just facing incredible amount of loneliness.
Really?
If I saw anybody at the day, it was usually at the end when I checked into a motel if I was that lucky. But if I came across somebody hitchhiking, I would stop and talk to them, and it was amazing. I found myself previously maybe judging who they were or what they were doing, but actually stopping and talking to them and hearing their stories. Suddenly I stopped judging people. It was amazing, the struggles that they were facing and the amount of courage that they had and what they were doing, or trying to get to a sick family member and they had no money, or they were trying to raise their own funds to go see a friend and they didn't have a place to live, and they were singing in Walmart parking lots trying to get people to give them a few dollars for a meal or a place to stay. So it gave me a really good insight into people and to not judging and just showing people love.
Wow. It's and how about you, Stephen? You said that you also, well, you didn't run across the country, but you did the marathon.
No, I've run the marathon. Yes, it's 26.2 miles. It's about what Jeff has done on an average. He's actually averaged 31 miles, so it tells you how many marathons he actually did during all that time. So it's for me, it was always, I always wanted to finish the marathon feeling well enough so I could feel like running the next year's marathon as well. So that was my goal in life. So I pretty much run 6 miles a day, and I've done that for almost 30 years.
Well, you had something you wanted to show us here too, didn't you?
Just a couple of things. These are actually my rosary intentions. There was actually I've got a website that it says it's Why Do I Pray?
Was that the website name?
That's the website name. It's basically it'll
Why
be
Do I
probably
Pray?
Be shown on your screen. And there's a story behind that and how I came up with that. And it was basically I was running in my hometown of Providence, Rhode Island, and I would be running by areas that I grew up in, and I would think about people who I hadn't seen in decades, and I would pray for them or pray for certain circumstances. So it turned into a list of things that were important to me to pray for, and I came up with a list of 15. And so I do a decade of the rosary every day. Of course, that's memorized. I've been doing it for so long.
Why don't you read off a few of those? Because some of our viewers want to know, well, what does a person...
What do you pray for? Yeah. I first pray for myself and my salvation, because I read
I think we all do that, yes.
that's important. And I understand that if we pray for our salvation, then God will grant that request. So that was in a book I had read called Hell, actually. So it's a great place to avoid, and the book ends after 500 pages that if we pray for our own salvation, it's always a good thing, and God grants us that. My special intentions for myself and my wife Debbie, our children, Eric, Melissa, and Thomas, for us as a family, for my deceased parents and their wishes, my brother and his family, other relatives, my wife's family, my boss's co-workers, other friends and family, also people who hate me because of my love for Christ. So those are the best people to pray for. The president, he certainly
needs our prayers.
He needs a lot of help. Yeah. So
yes, I don't think I'd want to be the president.
Elected officials and their families. The intentions of the Pope, which is part of my plenary indulgence requirement. Yes. That was the first time you had me.
Don't we have a wonderful Pope?
So yes,
yeah.
yes.
Oh my word!
Every
yes.
Pope we have is great, and this one is no exception to that. The intentions of the bishops, the priests, I pray for the religious of our diocese and their families. Financial wisdom, very important, so that I can spend as much time with my family as possible, so we don't have any financial problems. The unborn, and that's what led Jeff and I to meet one another.
Oh, how's that?
The Life Runners organization, which is a nationwide group. We'll talk about that in more detail. And then the last one is anyone who I've offended or who have not forgiven, and anyone who has not forgiven me for the sins I've committed against them. And that's basically it.
But you know, I don't like to say too much about what I pray about, but I do pray for, I pray for orphans. I pray for the children who don't know why they have to carry their clothes on their back living in a tent in the desert someplace. And they don't know why. They didn't do anything wrong, but they're being chased out of the country for whatever. You know how there's millions of refugees living in tents, all in boxes and whatever. I think they need our prayers. The little children, I pray for most, yeah. When you're running, you also do an awful lot of praying. Tell us a little bit about what you do in that area.
Yeah, that's how I kind of relax, and it's where I get into my deeper prayers when I run. So much like Steven, I kind of have normal things I go through in my mind, and after you've been doing it so long, it just goes one after the other. But same type of thing for family and the unborn,
right, yes.
Elected officials. And a big thing for the run was I thought it would just be people in the United States, maybe people I ran into who asked me to pray for them, but it was people all over the world. I had intentions from all these continents everywhere, and it was really humbling to read the struggles that people were experiencing, and that's actually what enabled me to get through my difficulties, because I was running and I was sore, maybe tired or slightly injured, but if I'm reading an intention from a parent who's asking me to pray for their kid who's struggling with leukemia, suddenly my situation doesn't seem that bad. And I'm more than happy to offer up any struggle that I have for those that are really in need. And that has carried me through
well, going
many
all
miles.
across a country like that, Jeff, there has to be some very unusual stories or funny stories. And imagine there's a couple of times you really got hurt. Did you ever turn your ankle or anything like that?
I did end up in the ER in Oklahoma. I thought my right leg was broken.
Really?
Fortunately, it wasn't. I had to hobble through a couple days. It turned out to be really bad tendonitis, and I was told to take a few days off before moving on, but like any runner, I said, it's not broken, let's go. I also had another injury called IT band syndrome. Basically, it makes it very painful to bend your leg past 30 degrees. And I had that from day 3 until I hit Missouri, so probably a good 1,600 miles. Very intense pain. And on my own, I know I wouldn't have lasted a day, but through the grace of God, I was able to make it through that injury and keep going. And I ran into bad weather. I got caught in a dust storm of winds sustained over 40 miles an hour and gusting to about 70, enough to knock you over. And I ran into a mountain lion out in the desert. So yeah, there's lots of good stories. So that's why I decided to write them all down.
I started to read this book a little bit before the show, and I was just amazed at how some of the stories you have. I'm going to get one of these books. I have to read this whole thing.
When you felt as though there was someone near you, and it turned out that he turned around and saw what who he thought was his guardian angel taking care of him.
Really?
Yeah,
You know?
I was in Texas and it was flat. I could see for miles. And there's no one around, no cars around, and I was running facing traffic, and suddenly felt like someone was around me. and I look to my right, and there's this older gentleman running completely dressed in white with a beard. And my first thought was, this guy is crazy. He's out running in the middle of nowhere. And then I realized I'm there too. But like I said, I talked to everybody, so I said, what the heck, let me talk to this guy and see who he is and what he's doing here. So I turned to the right to say hi to this guy, and gone. There's nowhere for him to go, but gone. So that was
Maybe it really was, you know.
And when you think
You
of the
gotta believe
areas-
in miracles of some kind.
Yeah. I mean, I run early in the morning sometimes, and I'm wondering, am I going to see any coyotes or dogs? And I pray to my guardian angel for protection. And I've never run into any problem, and I don't think you did either. You had some dogs, I think, nipping at your
Yeah, I had
your
about
heels,
300
but they-
dogs chase me total,
300 dogs.
and sometimes up to 10 at once.
10 dogs chasing you?
Oh,
Make you
yes.
move along.
Probably wild dogs.
Well, yeah, I had to stop and face them and slowly back up until they left. There's some very tense moments.
You probably outran them.
I wonder, where did the dogs come? There must be wild dogs. They can't
There's
be
some wild dogs. There are a lot of places. I went through a lot of very poor areas where people just didn't fence in their dogs, and they were
just running loose.
running loose. And you get a lot of them in a small town, and they'll go after anything that comes through, which happened to be me.
Well, now, Steven, I have something on the floor. I want to
Yeah.
see what this is all about.
This right here. Yeah, I just thought I did run one marathon wearing this shirt after I had run 15 marathons. And my wife, Debbie, was able to put all those patches every year.
Oh,
that you run.
they give you a patch.
They give you a patch every year, and every 5 marathons you run, they give you one of the round ones at the bottom. So it says 5, 10, 15. So I am highly motivated to run my 20th one, so at least I get another circular patch.
I imagine there's how many people get in that marathon?
It's about 30,000.
30,000.
Yeah, and interestingly, about 60% of the people are running their first marathon in the Rico Marathon. It's a great race. I've never run any other marathon other than that one.
Some of the runners are really in wheelchairs or handicapped.
Yes, coming back from different war
Whatever,
efforts,
yeah.
and I mean, there's so many people that I've met over these decades, actually, that put us all to shame and what they've done and how they've run it. They're missing limbs and everything else.
I see you have a medal there. What is that medal?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted you to see what it looks like when you cross over the finish line. It looks like I won the race, but I didn't. That's everybody who crosses over the finish line.
Oh, my.
gets-
I'm going to hold
gets
that.
one of
Hold
these,
still,
so-
John. There
So
we
that
go.
might give some people some motivation to get out there and give it a try.
You know, I don't run anymore. I used to run in college a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. In high school, I was always causing trouble. I was always playing tricks and I was in the cafeteria one day and I was doing, I'm not going to tell everybody what I did, but I was doing something with a water glass, throwing it at someone. And the cross-country coach came up. He was a cafeteria monitor. He says, John, see in my office right after lunch. I went there and he says, you are full of vinegar. He says, I want you to come run cross-country for me. I said, really? He says, yeah, I'm going to get some of that energy out of you. And then I got caught onto running. I ran all through high school, and then I went running in college. But after that, it all started because I was horsing around in college, or in high school rather.
Yeah.
Well, tell us some more about your book, Jeff, and where can they get that book?
They can get the book on Amazon.com. It's on BarnesandNoble.com as well. They can email me at jeffrunsamerica@yahoo.com, and I'll sign it and send it to them. And we're selling it. I manage a running store in Falls Church.
Where do you work?
It's called Potomac River Running. I manage that. It's a running specialty store, so we'll fit people for shoes.
Up in Potomac.
Yeah, and we also coach. So I coach a marathon training program and half marathon training program.
Well, that's
as
nice
well.
to know. I'm glad you brought that up because people would like to know how do you prepare for a marathon? You just can't say you're going to do it, you know.
No, it takes a while. That's why the saying it's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes a while to really train for it and then to run the race itself. It takes about 18, 20 weeks worth of solid running and training and planning and mental fortitude to get even ready for the race itself. But by that time, you've already done most of the hard work. Then you just have to get through the race.
Life Runners, what is that?
Life Runners.
And there's a, what's it say on the back of that shirt?
Yeah.
Oh, you have
Steven
one?
You can
has
turn
the
around if you
shirt.
like.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you.
Here we go.
I'm glad you brought
There
this
we go.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really the main reason why we're here, and that's how Steven and I met each other. I'm on the board of director of the Life Runners. It's a national organization, and we basically pray, run, and fundraise for pro-life. We have a few main events each year.
That's what I wanted to hear you say. You, say it again.
We pray, run, and fundraise, all in Christ, for pro-life.
For pro-life.
For pro-life, yes. So
Very good.
we have a few main events each year. People are welcome to walk and run, even though we call ourselves Life Runners. We have a 5K that's in conjunction with the March for Life here in DC.
When is that generally held?
This upcoming year is in January 22nd. It's that morning. We also have a national race each year. So this year, it's actually October 6th out in South Dakota. So there's a half marathon and a full marathon. And then we have what we just started this past year. It's called a relay across the country. And it's about 4,000 miles. There's over 1,100 different legs of the relay, averaging about 3 miles each. And people will sign up for a leg, and we encourage them to pray during that time and wear their Life Runner shirt to be a billboard for the cause. And that run will actually stop by different abortion facilities and pray peacefully outside of them. And even though we have those few main events, there's different chapters all over the country, and they'll have an event each month where they might pray outside an abortion facility. They might do a training run together with their jerseys. They might show up at a local race and wear their jerseys. We want to be a voice for those that don't have any.
That's very
I
good.
wear it during all my long runs, and even if people don't run or walk, it's a great thing for them to sign up for.
LifeRunners.org.
Yeah, there are daily devotions that you get. I get them by email every day, and it's all scripturally based. Readings for Mass for that particular day, and it's a wonderful thing to read. I look forward to it.
There's all ages running it.
All ages. There's Life Runners that are 6 years old. There's Life Runners that are 86 years old. So we span the whole spectrum. Yeah, everybody's welcome and everybody can play a part. Like I said, we actually have different little chapters throughout the country. It only takes 5 people to make a chapter, so you can get a couple families together and you have your chapter. And then we try to do an event of some kind each month. It's a way for us to stay involved with the cause and to be supported, because sometimes you can feel alone, but definitely not. And I'll tell you, I've worn this jersey while running a marathon actually here in Virginia earlier this year. And as I go by people, you hear people say, "Oh, that's an awesome shirt. Where did you get that?" It kind of just reminds people.
And it's great material too. I mean, it's first highest quality running material. And I have a running Life Runners hat as well, which is reflective in.
Well, I'd like you to mention, Jeff. We've got about 2 minutes left. I'd like you to mention that organization or the company you work for, the Life up in Potomac. Say it again.
It's called Potomac River Running. That's the store that I manage. It's in Falls Church.
And we got about 1.5 minutes left. If you each want to say something, I'll let you start off, Stephen, and I'll let you end up the show.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity here. Feel free to email us or give us a call. Our telephone numbers and email addresses and websites are listed on the screen. So we encourage you to stay in touch with us and give us a call.
And Jeff, I'll let you finish it up with this book.
Yes, well, this book might detail a long run across the country, but it's just my way of giving back with the talent that I have, and each of us has a talent. So I encourage people to use it, even if it's just walking or running or whatever you do in prayer.
Do it for the Christ, yes. Thank you, Jeff, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, John. My pleasure.
Thank you, Stephen, very much.
Thank you, John.
You know, folks, we're all living on this planet Earth. We have nowhere else to go. And when we do go, we hope we all go to the right place. But you know, while we're living on this planet Earth, let us all try to be a little more faithful and kind, a little more honest and forgiving and hopeful, a little more respectful for each other, more compassionate, patient, and charitable, and more peaceful every day in our work and in our play. And on that note, so long and God bless. This program was brought to you through the general support of Catholic Diocese of Arlington, established in 1974, serving over 400,000 Catholics in 21 counties in Virginia. It is the home to 67 parishes and 44 Catholic schools. His Excellency, the Most Reverend Bishop Paul S. Laverty, has served the diocese since 1999, opened 6 new parishes, 3 new schools, and 3 new missions. The diocese is the fastest growing in the country, with a 40%